Talk Ava. Learn English with confidence.
Today, we're talking about something that took me years to understand. It wasn't grammar, it wasn't vocabulary, it wasn't pronunciation. It was something much stranger than that.
That sounds dramatic. What happened?
The frustrating part is that nothing actually went wrong. Nobody corrected me, nobody looked confused, nobody asked me to repeat myself. But I walked away from the conversation feeling like I had missed something important.
That is almost worse than making an obvious mistake.
That's how it felt. I had spent years studying English. I knew grammar rules, I knew vocabulary, I knew how to build proper sentences. Then one day, I was talking to someone at an event, and for the first time, I felt confident. I thought, this is it. This is the moment all those years of studying finally pay off.
That sounds promising so far.
The person asked me how my week had been. I gave what I thought was a very good answer. I said, my week has been quite productive. I successfully completed several important tasks and met all my deadlines.
That sounds grammatically perfect.
That's the problem. It was perfect. The person smiled politely and said, nice. Then there was this strange silence. A few seconds later, the conversation ended.
What happened after that?
Nothing. That's what confused me. The conversation just died. Nobody was rude. Nobody seemed uncomfortable. But somehow there was nowhere left for the conversation to go.
And you felt that immediately?
Very strongly. I remember walking away and thinking, I answered the question correctly. Why did that feel so awkward?
I think a lot of listeners have experienced something similar.
That's why I wanted to talk about it. Maybe you've had a moment where your English was technically correct, but the interaction still felt strange. Maybe you understood all the words, but somehow the conversation didn't connect.
I think many learners expect a conversation to work like an exam.
That's exactly how I treated it. Someone asked a question, I provided the correct answer. End of task.
But conversations aren't tasks.
I didn't understand that at the time. I thought communication was mostly about accuracy.
So what did you do after that experience?
For weeks, I kept replaying it in my head. I looked at the grammar, I checked the vocabulary. I couldn't find a mistake anywhere. Then I started noticing something interesting. Native speakers around me weren't speaking the way I had learned from books.
That's an important observation. If you enjoy these conversations, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
One person would ask, how's your week been? And the answer would be something like, busy, honestly. I haven't stopped moving all week. Then suddenly they were talking about work, family, coffee, traffic, and weekend plans.
The answer created a path for the conversation.
Exactly. My answer ended the conversation. Their answer opened one.
That's a huge difference.
And that's when I had a realization that stayed with me for years. I knew the language, I just didn't know the conversation.
That sentence probably describes what many learners are feeling but can't explain.
Because most of us spend years learning English, but very little time learning how real conversations actually move.
And real conversations move in strange ways sometimes.
That's something I've noticed too. The more I listen to people, the more unpredictable conversations seem.
They really are. That's actually the thing textbooks never prepare you for.
What do you mean?
Think about most classroom dialogues. Person A asks a question, person B gives a clear answer. Then person A asks another question. Everything follows a neat structure.
That's true. Every conversation has a clear purpose.
Real life isn't like that. Someone asks how your weekend was, and 3 minutes later, you're talking about a movie, a restaurant, and a dog you saw in a park.
Now that you mention it, conversations change directions constantly.
And people rarely announce those changes.
That's what used to confuse me. I would be waiting for the next logical question while everyone else had already moved to a different topic.
Because people don't always follow logic in conversations. They often follow interest.
That's a really interesting distinction.
Think about the last conversation you had with a friend. Did it move in a perfectly organized sequence?
Not even close. We started talking about work, then somehow ended up discussing childhood memories and favorite foods. Exactly. Real conversations wander. Another thing I've noticed is that people don't always answer questions directly.
They really don't.
Someone asks, "Are you busy this weekend?" And instead of saying yes or no, the person starts talking about family plans or a project they're working on.
Because sometimes the real goal isn't answering the question. It's sharing information or continuing the interaction.
That would have confused me years ago.
Most learners expect conversations to behave like exercises.
But nobody speaks in exercises.
That's the lesson many people discover too late.
I think that's why real English felt difficult, even when I understood the vocabulary. I wasn't struggling with words, I was struggling with flow.
That's a very important realization.
I learned how to answer questions. I never learned how conversations breathe, change direction, and grow naturally.
And once you notice that, you start hearing conversations differently.
I already do. Now when I listen to people, I pay attention to how they move from one idea to another. Sometimes it seems completely random.
And yet it still works.
That's the fascinating part. It works because people are responding to each other's thoughts, not following a script.
Which is why real English often sounds very different from the English we first learn.
The more I think about it, the more I realize I spent years focusing on answers.
What do you mean by that?
I wanted the correct answer to every question. If someone asked how I was doing, I wanted the perfect response. If someone asked about my weekend, I wanted the most accurate description possible.
That sounds reasonable on the surface.
It does, but now I'm wondering if I was solving the wrong problem.
I think you were.
That's encouraging and slightly concerning at the same time.
Let me try something with you. And if you're listening right now, I want you to think about your own answer before we discuss it.
This sounds like a trap.
Not a trap, just an experiment. Imagine you ask two different people the same question.
Okay,
You ask, "How are you today?"
simple enough.
Person A says, "I'm doing well today."
Perfectly correct.
Person B says, "Honestly, I'm exhausted. It's been a long day already, and it's not even lunchtime."
Interesting.
Don't analyze it yet. Just think about it naturally.
All right.
Which person feels easier to continue talking to?
My first reaction is person B.
Why?
I'm not completely sure. Both answers make sense. Both answers answer the question.
But
The second answer gives me something to respond to. I can ask why they're tired. I can talk about my own day. I can relate to the situation somehow.
exactly, the answer creates possibilities.
While I'm doing well today feels complete.
That's the key word.
Complete?
Yes, the answer closes itself neatly. There's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't naturally invite the next part of the conversation.
That's fascinating, because for years I thought complete answers were better answers.
Many learners think that.
Let's try another one.
Good idea. Imagine you ask someone, "Did you do anything interesting this weekend?"
Okay,
Person A says, "Yes, I had a pleasant weekend."
nothing wrong there.
Person B says, "I tried cooking something new, and the result was much worse than I expected."
Now I want details.
Exactly.
I want to know what they cooked. I want to know what went wrong. I want to know whether they tried again.
The conversation has somewhere to go.
This is making me think about my own conversations.
I think listeners are probably doing the same thing.
Because I'm realizing I've given a lot of person A answers in my life.
Most learners have.
Not because they lacked vocabulary.
Because they were trying to be correct.
And being correct isn't always the same thing as being conversational.
That's a very important distinction.
I think I'm finally seeing something. Some answers are correct, others create conversation.
That might be one of the biggest discoveries in this episode.
Because nobody ever taught me to think about answers that way.
Most lessons focus on accuracy. Real conversations focus on connection.
And connection requires something extra.
Usually a little detail, a little personality, or a little emotion.
That explains why some people feel so easy to talk to.
They're often giving you something to work with.
Not just answering the question.
Exactly.
I think we should take this idea one step further.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Let's compare actual conversations.
Perfect. Let's do a small coffee shop experiment.
This already sounds more exciting than most grammar lessons.
Imagine two people meeting at a coffee shop after work.
Same situation.
Same level of English.
What's the first version?
Version A.
Let's hear it.
Person 1 says, "Hello, how are you today?"
Very textbook.
Person 2 replies, "I am doing well. Thank you for asking."
Very polite.
Person 1 says, "How was your day?"
And
Person 2 replies, "My day was productive. I completed my task successfully."
I suddenly feel like I'm reading a workbook.
That's the interesting part. Every sentence is correct.
Completely correct.
Now let's look at version B.
Same situation?
Same situation.
Go ahead.
Person 1 says, "Hey, how's your day been?"
Already feels different.
Person 2 says, "Busy, honestly. I thought today would be easy, but everything took longer than expected."
Now I can picture a real person.
Person 1 says, "Those are always the longest days."
That sounds natural.
Person 2 says,
The funny part is that I spent 20 minutes looking for a file that was sitting on my desktop the whole time.
Now I want to keep listening.
Why?
Because it feels human. It feels like something that actually happened.
Notice something else.
What's that?
The second conversation isn't more advanced.
You're right.
The vocabulary isn't dramatically harder.
The grammar isn't dramatically different either.
Yet one conversation feels alive and the other feels mechanical.
And I think I know why.
Let's hear it.
The second conversation contains energy. The speakers are reacting to each other instead of simply exchanging information.
That's a huge part of it.
Another thing I noticed is that the second conversation feels less organized.
That's true.
People jump slightly between ideas.
Real conversations often do,
They don't sound like carefully prepared speeches.
because most conversations happen in real time.
So people change direction, add details, remember things suddenly, and leave thoughts unfinished.
Exactly.
Which is funny because textbooks usually teach the opposite.
They do. Textbooks often prioritize clarity and structure.
While real conversations prioritize momentum.
That's a great way to describe it. I think this experiment explains something I've wondered about for years.
What's that?
Why some conversations feel enjoyable even when the English is simple.
Because people connect through energy before accuracy.
That sentence might stay with me for a long time.
It should. Once you notice it, you start hearing conversations completely differently.
That coffee shop example has been stuck in my head ever since we talked about it.
Because it felt familiar?
Because it explained something I've noticed for years without understanding it. Some people are incredibly easy to talk to, and others make conversations feel like work.
That's interesting, because most people assume it's about confidence.
You don't think it is?
Not completely. I've met very confident people who were surprisingly difficult to talk to. And I've met quiet people who made conversations feel effortless.
Now that you mention it, I've experienced that too.
So let me ask you something. Think about the people you enjoy talking to the most. What makes them different?
My first answer would have been communication skills, but now I'm not sure.
Take a moment and think about actual people.
Okay. One of my closest friends comes to mind immediately.
What is he like?
The funny thing is that he's not especially funny, and he's not the most outgoing person I know.
Then why do people enjoy talking to him?
He seems genuinely interested in whatever people are saying. When you're talking to him, it never feels like he's waiting for his turn to speak.
That's a huge difference.
You can actually feel it.
I think people underestimate how noticeable genuine interest is.
Now I'm remembering something. Last year, I was telling him about a project I was working on. It wasn't even a particularly exciting topic, but he kept asking thoughtful questions.
And how did that make you feel?
Like what I was saying mattered.
That's powerful.
I think that's why people enjoy talking to him. He has a way of making people feel interesting.
I believe that's one of the most underrated social skills in the world.
Making people feel interesting?
Yes, many people try to be interesting. Fewer people try to make others feel interesting.
That might explain why some conversations feel comfortable almost immediately.
Because comfort often comes from feeling understood, not impressed.
That's a really good point.
Think about the last conversation you enjoyed.
Honestly, it wasn't even about an exciting topic.
Most memorable conversations aren't.
We were talking about everyday life, work, routines, random experiences. Nothing extraordinary.
Then why did it feel good?
Because the other person was engaged. They reacted. They listened. They were curious.
Exactly.
I'm noticing a pattern here.
What pattern?
The people who are easy to talk to aren't necessarily the people who speak the most.
Very true.
They're the people who make you feel heard.
That's the word I was hoping you'd use.
Heard?
Yes. People enjoy conversations where they feel seen.
That's probably the deepest thing we've said in this episode.
Because it's true far beyond language learning.
I think listeners can probably identify someone like that in their own lives.
Most people can.
Someone who remembers details.
Someone who reacts naturally.
Someone who seems present in the conversation.
And someone who doesn't treat every discussion like a performance.
That last point feels important.
Why?
Because I spent years treating conversations like performances.
A lot of learners do.
I was focused on speaking correctly.
Sammy.
Instead of connecting.
Exactly. I was monitoring my grammar while other people were enjoying the interaction.
That's such a common experience.
The strange thing is that nobody told me this. Everyone talked about vocabulary and grammar.
But very few people talked about comfort.
Or curiosity.
Or reactions.
Which brings us to something I've been thinking about ever since our earlier discussion.
What's that?
The small things people say constantly.
Now you've got my attention.
The little responses that appear in almost every conversation.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And the weird part is that nobody ever taught them to me.
That's true for many learners.
Think about it. I spent years studying English.
Same.
I learned grammar rules, sentence structures, and vocabulary lists.
And yet?
Nobody ever sat me down and explained why native speakers say things like really every 5 minutes.
That's actually funny because it's true.
Or no way.
Or makes sense.
Or fair enough.
Or that's rough.
I hear those expressions constantly.
Every single day.
And now I'm wondering whether they're more important than I realized.
Much more important.
Because they're everywhere.
Let me ask you something. Imagine a friend tells you they spent 3 hours stuck in traffic.
Okay?
You could respond by immediately changing the subject.
That would feel strange.
Or you could say, that's rough. I'd be frustrated too.
That feels completely different.
Why?
Because the reaction acknowledges what the person just said.
Exactly.
The conversation feels connected.
And that's what these little phrases do. They connect moments together.
I think I used to underestimate them because they're so small.
Most people do.
They don't look important on paper.
But conversations aren't happening on paper.
That's such a good point.
Real conversations are emotional experiences.
And these reactions show people that you're paying attention.
That's why they're everywhere.
Now I'm noticing them constantly. Someone shares good news and another person says, "No way, that's amazing."
Exactly.
Someone explains a difficult situation and hears, "That makes sense."
Right.
Someone tells a story and gets a quick, "Really?" before continuing.
Those reactions keep the conversation moving.
Without them, conversations feel strangely empty.
Because information alone isn't enough.
I think listeners should pay attention to this the next time they hear native speakers talking.
That's a great challenge.
Notice how often people react before they add new information.
You'll hear it everywhere.
And once you notice it, you can't stop noticing it.
Because suddenly you realize something important.
What's that?
The smallest words often do the biggest work.
I think that sentence just explained years of confusion for me.
And we're not even finished yet.
The funny thing is that this entire conversation started with a question I couldn't answer.
Which question?
Why my English sometimes felt successful and unsuccessful at the same time.
That's a surprisingly good way to describe it.
Because I could communicate. People understood me. I wasn't struggling with grammar every second. Yet there were moments when conversations felt strangely flat.
And now?
Now I think I finally understand what was happening.
Let's hear it.
For years, I treated conversations like exams.
That's a huge realization.
Every interaction felt like a performance. Someone would ask a question, and my goal was to produce the best answer possible.
I think many learners will relate to that.
I wanted accurate grammar. I wanted strong vocabulary. I wanted to avoid mistakes. I wanted to sound intelligent.
Those goals sound reasonable.
They do. The problem is that none of them were actually helping me connect with people.
That's the part most learners discover much later.
Because real conversations aren't tests.
No, they're not.
Nobody is sitting there with a score sheet.
Most people are far too busy thinking about themselves.
That's another thing I've realized. I spent years worrying about whether people were judging my English.
And were they?
Probably not. Most of them were just trying to enjoy the conversation.
Exactly.
I think I created pressure that didn't need to exist.
A lot of language learners do that.
Looking back, I can remember conversations where I was so focused on speaking correctly that I barely listened to the other person.
That's a fascinating observation.
Because I wasn't having a conversation, I was preparing answers.
And there's a huge difference between those two things.
One feels like a shared experience.
The other feels like a performance.
I think that's why some conversations always felt exhausting.
Because performances require constant monitoring.
Exactly. I was monitoring vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, sentence structure, and everything else.
Meanwhile, the other person was simply talking.
That's actually funny when I think about it.
It is, but it's also very common.
I wish someone had told me years ago that people don't talk only to exchange information.
That's one of the most important truths about communication.
Because information is only part of the experience.
People talk to share experiences.
People talk to feel understood.
People talk to feel connected.
And people talk because they enjoy being around certain people.
Exactly.
The more we discuss this, the more obvious it seems.
That's usually what happens when something finally clicks. I think I've been looking at conversations through the wrong lens. How so? I thought successful communication meant saying the right thing.
And now? Now I think successful communication is helping the other person feel comfortable.
That's a much more human definition. I remember meeting someone a few months ago who spoke very simple English.
Okay.
Nothing impressive. No advanced vocabulary, no complicated expressions.
And yet?
People loved talking to him.
Why?
Because he was curious. He reacted naturally. He listened carefully. He seemed genuinely interested in everyone around him.
Those qualities matter much more than most learners realize.
And that's when everything finally clicked for me.
What clicked?
I stopped trying to impress people and started talking to them.
That's probably the biggest lesson in this entire episode.
Because the moment I stopped treating conversations like exams, they became easier.
And more enjoyable.
Much more enjoyable.
I think listeners can probably feel that shift too.
I hope so, because it changed the way I think about language completely.
And it leads perfectly into our final thought.
Which is?
The kind of English that actually changes your life.
That's a great way to put it.
Because when most people imagine improving their English, they picture bigger vocabulary lists.
Or more grammar rules.
Or more complicated sentences.
That's exactly what I used to think.
But after everything we've discussed today, do you still think that's the most important part?
Not really.
What feels more important now?
Being present.
Interesting.
Being curious about people.
Good answer.
Listening carefully instead of preparing my next sentence.
That's a powerful shift.
And honestly, I've noticed something recently.
What's that?
My English isn't perfect.
Nobody's is.
I still hesitate sometimes. I still search for words occasionally. I still make mistakes.
And that's completely normal.
The difference is that those moments don't bother me as much anymore.
Because they're no longer the center of your attention.
Exactly. My focus has moved from sounding perfect to having a good conversation.
And that usually produces better conversations.
Ironically, I think my English sounds more natural now than it did when I was trying much harder.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Because I'm less focused on delivering perfect sentences and more focused on responding naturally.
Which is how real conversations work.
I think listeners should try something this week.
What would you suggest?
The next time you speak English, spend less energy searching for the perfect answer.
And more energy paying attention to the person you're talking to.
Notice their reactions.
Notice what interests them.
Ask one extra question.
Show a little curiosity.
React to what they say, instead of immediately changing the topic.
Those small changes can completely transform an interaction.
And they don't require advanced English.
That's the beautiful part.
The skills that make conversations memorable are often surprisingly simple.
Which brings us back to the title of today's episode.
The everyday English textbooks never teach.
Because textbooks are very good at teaching language.
But life teaches conversation.
And conversation is where language becomes real.
I think that's the lesson I'll remember most from today.
Me too. And if you enjoyed spending time with us today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Talk Ava. We'd love to have you back for another conversation soon.
And remember, the English that changes your life is usually the English nobody teaches.